All right, it's time to get started. So welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to another week of the BC Sandpile. This week we're going to have a bit of a discussion from my end, maybe hopefully more of a group discussion about liquid templates using liquid code versus content holders, page modules, page control, that kind of thing. First, let me have a quick look at the updates here. Maybe I'll share my screen for that. All right, so BC Guru's weekly updates. There is no update this week. On the BC Academy side, I know Chad Smith is working on a tutorial. Him and I talked about a couple hours ago. He was trying to do something with search results, and we just weren't able to. Sorry, that's for his tutorial that's due tomorrow on BC Academy, and I think we're gonna have to fall back to something else because we just weren't able to get it working the way that we thought it should work. But he will come out with something for tomorrow, so you should see a new tutorial on BC Academy tomorrow. On the App Store, Greg has asked me to just make sure you knew that the automatic BC backup is on sale until the 20th. The per site is on, you can lock in a monthly price of $14.99 per month forever until you cancel. It's regularly $19.99 a month, so that's a pretty decent deal. And the unlimited, you can lock in a monthly price of $149 a month forever until you cancel instead of $199 a month. So those are pretty significant savings. And if you're considering those apps, I think that's probably worthwhile having a look at. Let me just check the chat here. Yeah, thanks for the feedback there, Jemiah. So over on the BC Business Catalyst blog, I checked there and there was no new updates there. And then I went over to the system updates forum and did find this scheduled system maintenance for the EU and AU data centers on January the 19th. And then I believe it's a week later on the US data center. So this has happened in the past. It's no big surprise. It takes them about 8 hours to complete it, it says here. Your actual outage is likely to be, there's 2 outages during the time frame. One will be 15 minutes and the second one will be 60 minutes, during which time there'll be some things that don't work. Partner registration, trial site creation, use publishing, FTP, and some admin sections will not be available during that time. And then any operational and email marketing campaign emails will be delayed until after those time frames. And reporting data will be delayed loading as well. So again, this has happened in the past. There's no big surprise here, and it is nice to get some notice on that. And this is just the automatic backup, and that's all good. Okay. Back to the screen where everybody can see. Whoever wants to turn their camera on, please go ahead. Thanks for your feedback, Bill. So liquid templates, liquid modules, liquid code, that's kind of what we're here to talk about. And I use, like by liquid templates, I think we're talking about .inc files and .tpl files. So I use these include files in the head, in the header, for scripts, for footer, and basically anything I don't want my end client to be able to get their hands on and update. And then I use content holders for items that you want the client to be able to update. Kind of makes sense. The include is not, you don't see it through the manage panel. You have to get into the developer view or FTP into it, where the content holder is available to your end clients. So that's kind of the way we section it out. There are uses beyond that though, and I'd be interested if anybody has some elaboration. They can either speak up and grab the mic, or they can just type it in the chat there. And I'm just going to share my screen again and just kind of show what we're talking about here. So this is a site I'm working on, and you can see under System Includes Template, I have a random index file for some reason, but I have a head include, and within that, that's where I'm putting my head tags. I have an import of the CSS from Typekit. I'm linking to my style sheet. The favicon is in there. I'm hooking up jQuery there, and we use this for our company settings app. That's the kind of stuff that goes in include. And then we have a header include, and typically we put in there things like, let's change that to HTML view. Things like there's a search form at the top, maybe there's a utility bar at the top. We put the menu in, the logo in there, that's here. And then we drop in the menu. That's the kind of stuff that goes in the header file. The scripts file, pretty straightforward. We usually try and keep our scripts file to 2. Extras is all the plugins. I can show you that in a sec. And scripts is the initialization of those plugins. So let me scroll down and kind of show you that. Oops. There we are. So extras, we just take the minified code and dropped it all, rather than linking to multiple JS files, we drop it all into one file, call it extras. And then in our scripts file, this is the initialization code for any of those items, any custom code. That's just how we do it. And then the footer, no surprise there, is really just the footer. Right, so here we have a utility menu. We have another logo in here in the footer, a slightly different one. We have a newsletter sign up section. That kind of stuff goes in the footer. And the way that drops into the template, let's just go here. And it keeps your page templates nice and compact. So here's the head include. Here's a Google Analytics script goes in there. Here's the header where the menu and the logo and that kind of thing is. I've got an include here for a contact form. So I also use it for stuff like that. I don't want the customer to be able to go in there and edit that, but sometimes I want to reuse that form. I use it here, and I happen to use the same form on the Contact Us page. This happens to be a banner on this particular page. And there is the footer, and then there is the script. So that's how I use include files. When you get to TPL files, that's typically for modules. So we try and keep our web apps, for instance. Let's close all these up. So you can see here we've got a case studies web app, and there's a list view and a detail view. We don't put our TPL files within these folders. We put them under module templates and then web apps, and then you can see I have an events web app, so I have a list limited. So if I open that, there's some kind of limitation on this, so I don't know exactly what it is. I can't remember. I'd have to go look. But this is different than the list view. I want to only go through X many items, or I want to limit something in here. So I put the code in a TPL file. You have to make sure. Maybe I don't remember where that one is. It's not under events. Pardon me while I search for what I'm looking for. I don't remember exactly where that one is. But the idea is you're using a TPL file. It's if you want to do something different outside of the standard list view. And the list view, again, your client can get to and maybe have a look at some HTML, maybe do some minor updates. This kind of code, this TPL file, is typically stuff you don't want your end client to get a hold of. And I probably should have picked a better example than that, so I apologize. Let me see if I can find one. So here's what I call alternate view. I got some tight control on this. The list view would be one way. This alternate view. Let me look at web apps events, industrial bioprocessing. Yeah, I'm not even using the list view in this case. So I want enough control over this to make sure that my end client can't come in here and make updates, because there's some very specific things that need to happen here. So that's when we tend to use the TPL files. And we store them under module templates, and then again, web apps. Perhaps if it's menus. So here I have a main menu.tpl and a single level menu.tpl. And you see here, I've got a bit of liquid code in here. I'm looking to see if the current URL is contained within this items, if the current page is contained within this item's URL, and then I want to add this data scroll attribute to that particular item. So I'm just some level of customization that's beyond what the default is what we tend to use these TPL files for. So hopefully that makes sense. Sorry, let me look at the chats. I had it closed. Let me catch up here. Cooking the kids around, no camera. Thanks anyway, Barbara. So Bill says he uses a settings.include file with a bunch of settings that we might change as the site evolves. So some level of control over some settings. So we may use a company settings app. Some people may use another web app. Bill is suggesting he's using a settings.include file for the same idea, which makes sense. Like whether the topper switches to a hamburger menu on small or on medium sizes, just some level of template control there. Phil, truncating words to 50. Sure, that's a great example of what I may want to do in a given TPL file. So maybe that particular item gets output on the home page. So on the list view page of a web app, I want to show the whole thing, but on the home page, I want to show a truncated view. So that's a great example of using a TPL file. Jeremiah, there's no particular reason other than organization for putting the TPL file under module templates instead of the layouts folder. So I think the idea is that we're trying to keep this as clean as possible. And we just tend to put our custom templates under module templates. So that's, I think, more of a dev team decision. There's no other logic behind that. There's no pluses or minuses or any reason beyond that. Just trying to keep it neat for us. And we tend to do it the same on all our sites. So if I take over if I have to work on a site that someone did 6 months ago, I know exactly where to look for the things that I need to find. So Phil's suggesting it is a brief versus a full description of the event, or for templates associated to modules, you should put them in the modules template. Sure, I'd buy that. Jack, yeah, that's on the, I tend to, when you get used to working one way, that tends to be the approach you do across platforms. So certainly for the Chicago digital sites I work on, I do that. And that is also migrated to the BC Brewers templates that I've worked on, generally speaking. Oh, Phil's just saying that's what I did. Okay. And the last one from Bill. So image source equals banner paginate.jpg. So when each page needs a different banner in the template, then they use the page name before the spell check. So yeah, that's a great way to use a custom INC file. So when the page loads, it looks at the page name, it inserts it in, and gives you a different custom banner for each page. So that's a great approach. Just check my notes here. So the one thing that will get you, if you're not careful, I don't know, I should have opened an example of this, I apologize. When you want to use a custom template, you got to make sure you use render equals. Yeah. Yeah, so this is the markets page. You see I've got a module web apps call, and I'm saying render equals collection. So this is even if you're doing a list view. So when I look at the web app for markets we serve, and if I look at the list view, I'm going to have a, maybe I don't. Sorry, I'm not obviously not impressing you much this day. Normally, this render equal collection is necessary if you have a liquid loop within your list view. And I apologize, I'm not able to put my finger on it. Maybe I'm a little tired here. But generally speaking, if you have, I don't know why this is not. And these are just not what I thought they were, sorry. Generally speaking, if you have this, a for loop within your list view, you need to put that render equals on your module web app call, or I've used to do this lots. You'd think you're writing the module web app call exactly right, and nothing would be output, and bang your head, and really what you're missing is this render equal collection. So if you want to be able to loop through it in a TPL file or even in your list view file, you need to put render equals collection in there. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, Jeremiah, it busted me lots until I kind of figured that one out. And I figured it out by basically, if I didn't get output, I put render equal collection and then see if I got output or not. And through that process, I basically figured it out. But I'm trying to summarize. Basically, if you want to be able to loop through it in your list view, you need to have this render equal collection on there. I didn't show the page on this one, Gracie. That's just a project I've been working on. I was just showing the code and kind of talking about where the include files were, and where the module files were, and then where the TPL files were. That's really all I've been talking about. Just checking my notes here. So some of that loop control stuff. So I mean, maybe I want to do that and just say, limit 5. Limit. So I can limit 5. That's a simple way to limit it, and you end up with no pagination. I'm sure some of you folks have done a module web app call and then hidden the pagination because it outputs it on the page whether you like it or not. So you just hide it with CSS, which is okay. But if you throw this if you do a render equal collection and you throw it into a for loop, you can use this limit this way, and then you don't even get the pagination on it. So I find it effective for that. And of course, limiting that many items. Or maybe you want to say limit 5 and then offset 4. So maybe you're already outputting 3 in one layout, and you want to output another 5 in a different layout. So maybe you have 3 large ones and you want 5 in a smaller container just below. So in this way, you can use 2 TPL files, one to get the first 3 with one layout, and then one to get the next 4, and put that into a different layout. Hopefully that makes sense. Just read the notes here. So Phil says he uses Liquid and includes to determine which site I'm showing and which assets to display on the page. Would be willing to share if anyone is interested. And Bill asks, are you using multiple sites on a single account? Phil says multiple domains, single account. So Phil, certainly if we have some time and folks are interested, you can grab the mic and do a screen share and show exactly what you're talking about. That would be cool. So I just want to make sure that render equal collection, that helped me a lot once I figured that out, so I thought I'd share that one here. So the next thing is page control, which we've discussed in previous Sandpiles, and we use that a lot, and we find it really useful. It's made its way into the last few BC Gurus templates because we like it so much, and certainly there are tutorials on both BC Gurus and BC Academy that talk about it in detail. And I wanted to just bring up that page modules are kind of part of page control. So page modules is simply just another web app. So for a page module, I could take this code, drop it into a web app item, and call it, I don't know, what's that? That's news. I could call it custom news banner, and have that in a web app item called under page modules called custom news item. And anytime the customer wanted to insert that on a page, they could just do that same web app call. They can insert this through the WYSIWYG editor and just select page modules, select that particular item, and do insert. And the WYSIWYG editor would insert that line, and they can trust that it's going to be rendered in exactly the same way. So we expand on that and use that as a data source in our page control web app, and that allows a customer to choose which modules they want to put out on any given page. But if you just want to have a page modules web app where you give your clients some ability to insert, custom kind of predefined modules on the page, then that's a great way to go. So let me just kind of give you an example here. So this is the latest e-commerce template on BC Gurus. And virtually this whole page is modules. So this 3-item section here is a page module. This banner is a page module. Even this products tab section is a page module. This free shipping banner is a page module. This list of images here, this grid is a page module. Even the blog is a page module. So if your customer wants to insert this free shipping banner on a different page, they just need to go into the WYSIWYG editor and say, go to the toolbox and say module web apps, insert specific item, boom. And it puts this page banner where they've suggested on the page. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to delve too deep into it because I know we've covered it pretty well in previous Sandpiles and on both the BC Gurus and the BC Academy websites. Okay, and Phil says he's ready whenever I am, so I'm just going to look through my notes here. So what I was going to do after this, yeah, okay. Well, if that's the case, and we got a fair bit of time here, so Phil, after this, I'll get you to turn your stuff on and show what you're working on. And just to clarify on this whole page module thing, I'll show you the back end of this particular site. So we have page control and we have page modules, and you'll see under page modules, and obviously they haven't fixed that yet. Or it could be as simple as I logged into a bunch of sites today. So let's see, where's that free shipping banner? So you can see it's just a little snippet of HTML code called free shipping banner. So if I'm on a page, and yes, your pages have to be set up properly. They have to be full width, or they have to be able to accommodate what you want to insert there. Let's say I want to insert that here on this site. I can just go to the toolbox, module web apps, list of web app items, and I can choose page modules, individual item, free shipping banner, and insert. And that will then appear on that page. In fact, let me update it and see if this is going to work. I think this one will work just fine. So this one is not a full width page template, but you can see that it dropped it right in here. So again, it assumes that your client understands what they can and can't do. So you can see this is inner color background. If this was a different page template, a full width template, it would have been just fine. But that's how we use page modules. Then on top of that, it's a data source for page control. So in this case, when I go to the About Us page and I want to add that, there's a testimonial slider. Let's just say page module 5, say free shipping banner and update. And so that should appear right below this. And there it is, free shipping banner. So in this case, it's integrated with the template properly. It's in the full width section, and it dropped it in exactly where I wanted it. If I want to move it up, well, then I can just change the testimonial slider to the free shipping banner and page module 5 to the testimonial slider. Just change the order of those, and it would rearrange itself on the page. So that's the advantage of this whole page control page module section. You can see at the top here, I can control the banner image for that specific page, the page title, the subtext, and then which modules appear on that page. So I can control what this says, what this says. I can control which image. Now Bill does that through his process. We just got it baked into this page control. And then starting about here, I have this content on the About page, but the rest of this is all inserted through those page modules. And I can choose and reorder it as necessary. So Bill says, love that. Need to start pushing more gold for clients without commerce or other needs for web apps. Yeah. I typically don't do anything but one that does web apps. I personally feel anything else is false economy, because invariably your client wants more than you can deliver without web apps. And at that point, now you got a conversation where you're trying to upgrade them. So I personally try and do it right from the start. Yeah, those these are this is a data source. So this is basically in the page control web app. This page module 7, the data source is the page module. So if I go to this field, you can see that there's page module 4, the data source is page modules, and that's the connection. Does that make sense? Yeah, thanks, Gracie. It takes a bit of figuring out to figure out the process, but once you do, I mean, how much easier could it be for an end client to add, remove modules on the pages as they want? You kind of put some control back in their hands. Yeah, Gracie, when you get that fleshed out, I wouldn't mind hearing more about that. So outside of that, and I'll include this in the once I add the recording, I'll include a PDF with this stuff. So BC Gurus, there's an introduction to page control, so you can go more in depth. Mike, I think Mike did both, the BC Gurus version and the BC Academy version. It goes in more in depth so you can understand more how this page control, page module stuff works. Apparently I did it twice. Yeah, sorry, this one is more about module data. So this is liquid, and I didn't update the title here. So I'll get the right name on this, but it talks more about using liquid modules, the TPLs, the INCs, and that kind of thing. Dynamic content holders talks about the options there. It's really more around using TPL files in a dynamic way, kind of much the way Bill does. So depending on the page that's getting loaded, it'll give you a different content holder based on that. So that talks about that a bit. On the Academy side, there's a really good tutorial here talking about content holders versus liquid includes. I think Scott Schuffer did that one. That's a super one. Dynamic content holders is really the same thing here. It's in both places, depending what you have a membership to. And this one is using liquid global variables to manipulate modules across different pages. Again, a variation of that dynamic content holders. I think this one is a more advanced level than the one on BC Gurus. And if you just go to BC Academy, I did a search term for module, and there was some 14 or 15 tutorials there that deal with modules that you may find useful. So again, I'll turn this into a PDF and include it on the included in the resources there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if I can figure out how to give Phil rights here. Okay, Phil, I'm seeing your screen, I believe. I don't hear you, though. Are you
hear me now?
Now I can hear you. I'll mute myself, and you go ahead.
Okay, so it's pretty straightforward and simple, but this is the default HTML. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. Default HTML template that is assigned to pretty much every page on the site. And you can see that we make extensive use of includes. And then I'll just give you one example for the header here. Include, do pretty much just like what Dave talked about, the different sections of the page, go into the different include sections. And then this head, sorry, I put up the wrong, here, hold on. Header include, not head include. And actually, not that one, sorry. This one here, this head include up here at the very top. It goes into the head of the page. And you can see here that starting about here, so we use liquid to determine which website it's on. So if host equals, and then of course that gets it from the module site host. And then it goes through and adds the Google Analytics account information specifically for ibadd.org website, the ibad.org website. And any other pages on the website, which there are 2 other domains. The World Secure Systems, obviously, the IIBA CIC.org, and then there's another one, the Central Iowa IIBA.org website. All of those would fall into this else clause. And of course, they have a different Google Analytics section. The header would be very similar. The IBCC would be the other scenario, basically all the other domains on there, and then of course the ibad.org website would be this top section here. So this is the same thing: module site host, and then if host equals www.ibad.org, and then you can see that on the actual HTML page there are several other include tags. To top, the footer, all of those would be different based on which sites. So I mean, it's really fairly straightforward. You just use that module site host, and then you can determine which domain you're on, and then depending on which domain you're on, you can load up. I mean, you can load up a completely different template, a completely different header section, body section. You know, it's all totally up to you how you want to do it, but it's pretty straightforward, and it works rather well. The form submissions, because most of it is secure content, goes through the World Secure Systems, the HTTPS site. I have not started to explore the HTTPS with the custom domains yet. I'd be interested in anybody else that's done that, because I know that there's that capability to submit forms securely through the HTTPS with custom domains. So I'm not even sure if the module site host actually collects whether or not it's the HTTP versus HTTPS. I don't know, maybe Dave can put some input on that one. I'm not sure how you can tell which one it is, whether it's HTTP or HTTPS in the protocol. But that's really it. That's, like I said, pretty straightforward.
That's a great use case, though, Phil. I like what you're doing there. Bill says he assumes that these are for the same client who needs different domains for whatever reason. Are they trying to economize by just putting 2 domains on one site, or is there a different reason for that?
So it's a nonprofit business organization, so like a chamber of commerce, I guess you could say, and they use one domain for their main. It's a professional group, so they use the main domain for their professional group, the website, and then they use the other domain for the. Let's see here. So forgive me, I haven't had control over this website for a while, so I'm not sure what they did with this calendar over here, but that's the main page, and you can kind of see that this has the IIBA Central Iowa chapter logo, which corresponds to the header section here.
That's the else, is that, or is that the IBADD? No, it's the else. Okay.
Yep, it's the else. So the ibadd.org is the event-based website. So that one is where they basically advertise their annual conference. So you can see there's a different logo, different help center for them. The create account goes through the same process. So you create one account. So back in the CRM, all of the accounts are spread across both websites, which is nice because, you know, if you're a member of the one, you can actually get a discount for attending IBAD. Same concept there as the accounts you want to have kind of be the same. So I guess this really would have a good use case if you had a single organization that wanted to have multiple web presences and still have the same, back-end CRM, the same kind of back-end management. They wanted to have, maybe the max of, the 10 users or however many users they have. They can all get in there and edit the content. And of course, with the web apps driven scenarios, sort of like what you guys had there.
Yeah, and so you're obviously reusing some content there too, which is cool. That's Paul. Paul asked that. He was wondering about the savings, like what's the advantage? And to me, I kind of see what you're doing there. You're reusing content. You're keeping them all on one platform. They don't have to log into two different places. Like you say, one account as far as the secure zones goes. What Phil wondered out loud is he's wondering if the savings in hosting are swallowed up by the increased development work. What's your opinion of that, Phil?
When you look at the full year, you're $38 a month. You're not really talking about too much money. I mean, you could essentially double that up, and it's still really not that much money. So I don't. Depending on what kind of organization it is, in their budget, they, I'm sure, especially when it's a nonprofit, business organization that doesn't have a lot of membership, the single account route is definitely the better option. I guess the biggest kind of gotcha that I found again is that it's kind of like when you want to have like a small variance in brand identity. If you have like a really big difference in brand identity, like it's a kid's website, like the e-commerce site for kids' toys, and then the other identity would be something like a food website where you're selling recipes or something like that, then obviously those two from the back end perspective are going to have a lot of clashing assets, simply because the HTTPS scenario, the form submission scenario, the credit card processing being all in the same account, it's going to be kind of hard to separate your identity from that perspective. But when it's just small variance in brand identity, such as this one here, then using that one account and then separating your assets based on either categories or web apps, or liquid includes with your site host module, that tends to make sense and reduces the overhead for administration for sure.
Yeah, my impression from what I saw there was it wasn't necessarily aimed at a monetary advantage. It was really more around reusing content, and Paul said that too. He kind of jumped out and said, "Oh yeah, single CRM, he gets that now." So I didn't see it as a dollar saving thing, more so as a content reuse and consolidation of resources.
Exactly.
Cool.
So yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. If you want to just stop sharing the screen there, does anyone else have an example they'd like to share with the group here? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out I got a monitor here that I'm trying to figure out. Never mind. So Paul asks, what you've been doing, Gracie, if you're interested in sharing, just type if you like, or you can grab the mic if you want. I think if I'm looking back in the notes, you have HTTPS on a site that has 4 domains. So 4 domains to me seems like a lot of domains to have on in one hosting scenario there. You must have a reason for that, eh?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The main reason we have 4 domains on one hosting platform for one company is, well, the original domain has been around the guys had it for 11, 12 years. So we know the advantage of that. But last time I was in the BC Sandpile, I was telling you guys about the automotive parts, trying to figure out the dynamic search menu for year, make, model, so forth. Doing that for SEO purposes and branding purposes, we got more domains. So the goal is to point, the A&H parts to the actual parts website, and then, their original one to their service website, which we did get. I believe I got the year, make, model drop down figured out, the search. So I will hopefully know by the end of the week on that.
Cool. So it seems like it's content reuse again. Is that a decent way to put it? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of taking. I've been using, creating web apps for every little section or menus, for everything that we need on his website. Even if they're already in catalogs or if they're already in, the products or the breadcrumbs. If it's something that's important. And so far, I mean, it's working out great. As I insert them, I still have to go into the, start implementing page control to allow the user to interact with it. But I mean, it's turning out to look great, especially with Foundation 6. I usually try to stick to only HTML, CSS, and JS, but using the Foundation 6 and then a Chrome add-on, I'm able to actually create progressive web apps from them and using the Google developers. So I'm hoping by the end of the week, I'll have the little button on there that says add to home screen. But if you do that, Chrome on your Android or iPhone, if you add it to the home screen, their little icon will actually pop up that I put on there.
Nice. Yeah, there's such granular control with what we have access to now with Liquid and web apps and stuff. And I guess it's kind of the best of times and the worst of times. The best of times is in that you can do so much stuff, but the worst of times because you can turn yourself into a bit of a a bit of a tornado there if you're not too careful.
Yeah, we're fixing to launch. I'm fixing to get into the whole secured, creating secured membership sections, because we're fixing to launch several different courses like YouTube marketing and so forth. And then we have a product to sell leads with. So, we haven't launched it or anything yet because we want to build, something secure. And we've got to figure out, how to keep duplicate content from getting delivered to multiple people.
Nice. Something Phil just typed in there. He put a link to a previous Sandpile, and that reminds me, there's some kind of problem with the ID that we and other Adobe people use to access that Connect app. So if you try and watch a previous Sandpile that was done or recorded using Connect, I've been getting an error for the last couple of days. And it looks like that something expired at the start of 2018. And I've been talking with Magda. She's trying to track down someone on the Connect team to figure out what went on. But in the short term, I think you're not going to be able to watch a Connect recording. If it's a Zoom recording, it's there. That'll be on the YouTube channel. But the Connect recordings, you may not be able to get to. Well, Scott denies that, Penny. Penny thought it was Scott's account, but it doesn't seem to be. Because that was I went right to Scott to see if that was the case, and he knew right away what was happening because it was happening to him as well. But it seems to be the overarching Adobe Connect community, not so much a specific account. So not sure what's going on beyond that. But I thought I'd just let you know that if you're trying to access a recording right now, you may not be able to. It does stink. There's literally dozens of Connect recordings there that I hope we don't lose access to. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for sharing that, Gracie. And does anybody else have something they'd like to bring forward? An example. Screencast-o-matic, yeah. I mean, right now it's not even playing. So there's some consideration if we do get it back on again of trying to do exactly that, get a Screencast-o-matic, or see if we can download it in some way, shape, or form and put it into a video and throw it up on the YouTube channel, which seems to be a little more resilient. Yeah, thanks for that, Phil. You got a link in chat there to your GitHub page. Very nice, thank you. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. So that's really about all I had. I was hoping that there would be some conversation around how people are using just exactly what we did. If anybody else has got some examples of how they're using liquid templates or how they're using dynamic content holders or that kind of thing, and they'd like to share, that would be fabulous. We're down about 10, 15 minutes here. So. While we're waiting there, Gracie, that's one of the things Chad and I were trying to figure out was taking search results and sectioning it out. So here's all the web app search results. Here's all the product search results. Here's all the blog search results. And we very quickly ran into, well, the big problem is pagination. So if you output 10 of each and you say, go to page 2, what happens on page 2 with all those sections? So we were talking about some ways around that, and it's complicated. It's complicated. So I don't know exactly where we're going to wind up on that, but part of me says, show 10, 15, 20 results and just say, hey, there's more, if your results aren't in here, refine, give us more parameters, give us something we can use to refine the results. So you're not getting, 100 or 200 results to scroll through. I mean, who goes through that many pages of search results to find what they're looking for? They're looking for it to be in the first, 5 or 10, right?
We call it the thumbs of rule. How many times are you going to use your thumb?
Mm-hmm.
And, thinking about that, because, that's one of the biggest things. This is 3,000 parts that we're talking about. Plus they want to use the form. They want to be able to use every feature that it provides. So I think breaking it up into what I've done so far is part types, categories, and the menu section, and then rendering those from the menu.
Sure. Yeah. It's a challenge. I have a site I take care of that sells, they're not Pandora charms, but they're like charms. And there's literally hundreds and thousands of parts. And they wanted it so that wholesalers saw different results than retailers. And there's only one way to do that, right? That's to do exactly what you're
the liquid, yeah.
Yeah. And to handle the pagination and to show and not show and all that stuff, it becomes real complicated for sure.
I know one thing I'd like to see somebody integrate, because I've already got too much on my plate, is something, if you think about it, a lot of places are more willing to give a wholesale price. And how are you verifying that that's a business? So some kind of app or something to business verification.
Yeah, that would be kind of neat. Although I don't know, it's got to be pretty country, maybe even region specific. Like what?
Yeah.
You think about the states? There's 50. How many? How's there? 50 states or 52 states? I'm up in Canada. I don't know. There's some 50 some odd states. Each one could have its own parameters for around what makes a business. So how do you manage that? How do you prove?
Well, DBA, the EIN DBAs. We have a tool that actually goes straight to the database, like Google, Bing, Facebook, straight to their data sources, and will scrape any entity we put in there and give us the information. But now integrating that from a software into where it would do something like that, that's why I'm going to college. One day I'll learn it.
We've been toying around a bit with HubSpot just to see what we can do with it, and it was one of the things we found out this morning. You type a customer's name in, and if they've had any other interactions with anybody else in HubSpot, it pulls that information, even if it's not your specific account. If they've had an interaction with someone the other side of the country, whatever information they've put into HubSpot is pulled forward into your view of that. So that's maybe that's what you're talking about. So we might get there. I don't know. Although not everybody goes on HubSpot, right? So
HubSpot's expensive.
It is, yeah. It is. I'm just trying to look at the notes here. Yeah, we kind of, that's Bespokeify. We kind of talked about that, maybe output 10 and then give a link to a specific page. So if you give 10 web app items, 10 blog posts, 10 FAQs, 10 products, or whatever, And at the bottom, you just provide a link that takes them to a page that only does that section's search. So if they're on products and they want more, you click that, it takes you to another page that just outputs product search results. I mean, that's possible. We did talk about that. I'm not sure if that's the way they'd want to go or not, but we'll see. Now, Paul says the HubSpot's free CRM grabs that same customer data. So that might be something to look at, Gracie.
Penny said she was able to access that Connect recording.
Well, that's because Penny's special.
Well, record it then.
Yeah. So maybe it's been fixed. It's quite possible. I didn't check before the Sandpile today. It was this morning was the last time I checked. It might even have been yesterday. So maybe it is. So maybe they figured it out and it's working again. That would be grand. So now we got to think about what are we going to do with the existing recordings. I don't want to click on it myself because it caused my computer to screw up. At least I'm pretty sure it was. So if I clicked a link in an email, it wouldn't open it. It would just open a browser window, but it wouldn't open the link. And I thought I didn't know what it was. And it was happening from between browser windows, from my pages, word processing, even Google Docs. It was not opening links. And I thought, well, it's just something. So anyway, I rebooted. And when I rebooted it, it came up with an Adobe Connect error message and said, hey, this thing is waiting for some stupid ass thing to happen. And I canceled it. And then all of a sudden my link started working again. So I'm a little suspicious that clicking on that Adobe Connect link is once or twice is what caused that problem. So yeah, now we tell you. Oh, sorry, Peter. Yeah. Now I tell you I had a problem with clicking the link. Sorry about that. As everybody in the audience went out and clicked the link and locked their computers up. Yeah. Hopefully that didn't happen to you. But if Penny got in, well, then we should all be able to get in. So way back up, Phil said, do you really have a preference, include versus TPL? Was directed at you, Jeremiah, so maybe you answered it. I tend to use includes for things like the header, the footer, the head, the scripts, and I tend to use TPL for module related stuff. That's the way I look at it. I think you can use either for either, but that's the way I section it up myself. Gracie gave me some confidence that I didn't screw everybody's computer up because hers is working all right. Anybody else doing anything interesting with modules or page control or Liquid in general? Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. Use TPL for stuff clients, shouldn't be bothered with, shouldn't necessarily be poking around in. Yeah, thanks, Phil. I'll share this with you. It took me a bit to figure it out, and it's not ready for me to share with you guys yet, but I had a design spec where the client wanted to have anchor tags. So if you're on page A and the menu, they had page B, and then as submenu of that, they had page B, section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, and they were all anchor tags. And they wanted a smooth scroll. So if you're on page A and you use the drop-down menu and you go to section 3 on page B, you had to go to page B and then smooth scroll down to that section. And it seems like such a simple thing. It was not. It took me quite a while to figure that out and make it actually work properly. So I'm not sure if anybody else has had something like that. But and by the way, and if you're on the same page, you need to be able to hit the drop-down menu and hit section 2 now, and you're already on the page. Then it had to scroll up to section 2. And oh, by the way, if you're on a tablet, your mobile menu had to do the same thing. So Bespoke, if I put a link there to some search he was working on a hotel room availability site, might help you there. Yeah, Phil, that's why I say it's the best of times and the worst of times. You can certainly get yourself into, uh, button, who's got the button. You can't find the content you need to edit because it gets your multi-levels deep there and you don't know which module or which include file to get into. So that is one of the places where the visual content finder can really help, actually. That's something that's on the App Store, and we find it really helps our end clients with that. They turn it on, they click on it, it takes them right to the item that they need to edit. So, but even that takes some setup to make it work properly. So, Inception, I believe, was the movie, Paul, with Leonard, whoever his name is, Leo DiCaprio. That's it, Leo DiCaprio. Yeah, Phil, and it's all in the name of making it easy for the client to add a sentence to a page without breaking it. I almost really would rather they just send me their updates on a napkin and I'll take care of it, frankly. Do you mean my widget spinner, Phil? Paul, is that what you mean? Who's got a widget spinner? Come on, fess it up. I see you shaking your head there, Jeremiah. I bet you got one. No? Oh, okay. Now that clarifies. Thanks, Paul. Inception fans will get it. I only watched it the once, and it was a while back, so I forget the content. Just a couple minutes left here. If anybody's got anything else to share or ask in the chat. All right. Thanks a lot for coming in, Grace, and thanks for sharing with us. See you, Penny. And if no one's got anything else, then we can just pack it up, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Paul. You're most welcome, Jeremiah.